Now let's look at the metric system and converting within the metric system, which is based on the number 10. So we're going to be working with 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000, a lot of zeros in this lesson. So let's look at some of the basic conversions. So 1 meter is equivalent to 100 centimeters, and 1,000 meters equals 1 kilometer. And 1 meter equals 1,000 millimeters. Now, something that may be helpful, we have a couple different ways to represent some of our basic conversions using our prefixes, kilometer, hecto, deca. You heard me say centimeter. Our base unit is the meter, and everything is based off of that. So these two tables would probably be really helpful for you as you're going through your conversions, and I will refer to them pretty extensively, especially with your prefixes that we'll use a lot, and especially this table down here at the bottom, that comes in very helpful, especially when we're converting within the metric system. As you notice, the top row is all in meters. That's our base unit, so everything is in reference to meters, and that is something that makes converting within the metric system very easy to do because it's all based on the same thing, versus the American where we have 12 or 3 or 5,280. We don't have that in the metric system, so it is a little bit easier to convert, but we can use some of the same tools that we used with our American units with our metric units. So I'm going to be showing you kind of two different ways to approach these problems. So here's a few problems. Let's look at these first. I have 150 millimeters equals how many meters? If we try to set these up the same way we set up the American units problems, then we're going to look at some ratios. So we're going to look at what we're starting with, which is 150 millimeters. And again, your units is very important. And since we know that we want our millimeters to go away, we know that we're going to need a conversion factor that has millimeters in it as well. And we want our millimeters to be on the bottom so that it will cancel. So we do have a conversion that compares millimeters to meters, which is what they want me to get. So I know that 1 meter is the same thing as 1,000 millimeters. So now when I cancel my units, my millimeters cancel, I'm left with just meters, and when I do the math, remember I multiply straight across, which is going to give me 150 meters over 1,000, and when I divide, and you can divide in your calculator if you like, or if you remember your rules for dividing by 1,000, it really is just the movement of a decimal point, which we'll look at here in a minute. But when I divide it in my calculator, I do get 0.15 meters. Now the other thing I wanted to show you is if you go down here to the bottom and look at this little table down here, when I am dealing with millimeters, so here's my millimeters, and I want to go to meters, which is right here. I'm starting at the circle and I have to go 1, 2, 3 decimal places to the left. So if I take my original number of 150 and I take my decimal and I move it 1, 2, 3 decimal places to the left, I get the same thing that I got when I did my ratio conversions. I get 0.150, which is the same thing as 0.15. So when you're dealing with metrics, you can continue to use our ratios, and I will show it both ways using the ratios, or you can use just your place value chart and move your decimal point the corresponding number of times, or how many jumps you need to get from one unit to the next. So let's try it with the next problem. We have 5,670 centimeters, and again your units are very important, so don't leave those off. over 1 times, I know that I'm going to have some centimeters on the bottom there. Now because this is centimeters and kilometers, what I find to be helpful is to get everything back to meters. That's the most familiar unit and it's the easiest one to work with. So instead of jumping all the way to kilometers, let's just jump to meters, because then I can use my prefixes to help me. I know that 1 meter is equivalent to 100 centimeters, because centi, C-E-N-T-I, means 100. Now because I don't have my final unit left, or yet, I need to actually multiply by another conversion. So this time I've got to put meters on the bottom. Well, I know that there is a conversion, and I can use my prefixes to help me between meters and kilometers. I know that 1 kilometer is 1,000 meters. So now when I look at my conversions in my units, I have centimeters that cancel, I have meters that cancel, and I have kilometers left, which is what I want to get when I'm all done with this. So now what we're going to do is the math. Let's multiply across. So that's going to give me 5,670 times 1, so 5,670 over 100 times 1,000. So that's really going to be a 1 with 5 zeros. And when I divide this, I'm going to get let me free up some space here. 0.0567, and this is kilometers. Which this is what you would get, and I just did that division in my calculator. Or if you use the table down here at the bottom, let me get rid of our previous work. I'm starting at centimeters, which is right here, and I'm going all the way to kilometers, which is over here. So that's a jump of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, my original number of 5,670, my decimal point would be behind the 0, and if I moved it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times, then I would also get 0.0567. So again, you can do this 2 ways. You can set up your ratios, or you can use the table at the bottom. Let's just do a few more. Let's do one that we're not so familiar with. How about number 15 here? We have 43 decameters equals how many decimeters? So if I set up my ratio, I'm going to have 43 decameters. We want to have decameters on the bottom, because remember we want that to cancel out. And I know that decameters, deca means 10, so I know that there is 10 meters in 1 decameter. And now let's do a conversion factor that takes it from meters to decimeters. And I know that there are 10 decimeters in 1 meter. So now let's do the math. Multiply straight across. I have 43 times 10 times 10. And before I forget, let's cancel out our units. So I know that I'm going to have the right units when I'm done. and my denominator looks like 1, so 4,300. And if I started with 43 decameters, that's right here, and I'm going to decimeters, which is right here, I actually have to move my decimal point 1, 2 places to the right. So 1, 2 places to the right gives me 4,300 decimeters as my final answer.